My name is Colin Mercer, and I'm a 42-year-old senior strategic accounts manager. For the last 8 years, I've poured my heart and soul into my work at Technovision Solutions, an Austin-based software company. I've always prided myself on my relentless work ethic and meticulous attention to detail. In this cutthroat industry, these aren't just good qualities. They're the difference between success and failure. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and incredible plot twists, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. New, unreleased stories are posted every day, each one more intense than the last. In October 2022, I began working on what would become the biggest deal of my entire career. Dataflow Industries, a Fortune 500 tech giant, was in the market for a comprehensive software solution to streamline their operations across a dozen different states. The contract was a monumental $2.4 million, more than our company typically earned in 6 months. I dedicated myself completely to this project, spending weeks researching Dataflow's every need, their corporate structure, and their specific pain points. I flew to their Denver headquarters 3 times at my own expense before the company even approved the travel budget. I built genuine relationships with their CTO, their operations director, and ultimately, their CEO, Robert Martinez. These weren't just professional connections. I truly understood their business challenges and crafted solutions that would genuinely help them. The negotiations dragged on from November 2022 to April 2023, filled with countless late-night calls, weekend presentations, contract revisions, and technical demonstrations. I worked closely with our development team to customize features specifically for Dataflow's requirements. Every email, every meeting, every breakthrough moment, it all traced back to me. Everyone at Technovision knew this was Colin Mercer's deal. However, a critical change in the company's dynamics took place in December 2022. Our CEO, Richard Cross, promoted his 30-year-old daughter, Danielle, to commercial director. Danielle had an MBA from a respectable school, but her experience in our industry was limited to 2 years in junior marketing roles. The promotion raised eyebrows across the office, but no one dared to say anything. It's just office politics, you know. Danielle immediately began implementing new leadership models and strategic restructuring. She held meetings filled with corporate buzzwords like synergy and optimization, impressive-sounding terms that meant absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, I kept my head down, grinding away on the Dataflow deal and focusing on tangible results. By late April 2023, everything was falling into place. Dataflow's legal team had approved our final contract, and their technical team had signed off on our software specifications. Robert Martinez himself told me, "Colin, you've made this process smoother than any vendor negotiation we've had in years. We're looking forward to a long partnership." On May 15, 2023, Dataflow Industries officially signed the $2.4 million contract, marking the biggest single deal in Technovision's history. I remember sitting in my office that afternoon, looking at the signed documents, filled with a sense of genuine pride. 7 months of dedicated work had finally paid off. But that satisfaction lasted for exactly 3 days. On May 18th, Danielle Cross called an all-hands company meeting in our main conference room. The entire sales team, executive staff, and even people from accounting and IT were there. She stood at the head of the table, beaming with confidence, and made an announcement that still makes my blood boil. "I'm pleased to announce that Technovision has successfully closed a $2.4 million contract with Dataflow Industries," she said, her voice carrying that artificial authority that comes with unearned positions. "This achievement represents the effectiveness of our new leadership model and strategic approach to client relations. It demonstrates what we can accomplish when we implement modern management techniques." She never mentioned my name, not once. 7 months of my life, my expertise, my relationships, all of it was reduced to our new leadership model. I sat there watching Danielle bask in applause for work she had absolutely nothing to do with, and I felt something I'd never experienced before. It wasn't just anger. It was a cold, calculated realization that I was dealing with someone with no ethical boundaries. After the meeting, several colleagues approached me privately. Sarah from accounting whispered, "Everyone knows that was your deal, Colin." Mike from IT shook his head and muttered, "This is completely wrong." But corporate sympathy doesn't pay the bills or restore your professional reputation. I went back to my office, closed the door, and began to think clearly about what had just happened and what it meant for my future at Technovision. Danielle had shown she was willing to steal credit for major achievements to legitimize her position. If she could do it once, she would do it again. And if she saw me as a threat to her narrative of successful leadership, I was probably next on her list for elimination. That's when I made a decision that would prove to be the smartest move of my career. Instead of storming into Richard Cross's office to complain about his daughter, or sending angry emails, or confronting Danielle directly, I decided to prepare for war, a quiet war fought with meticulous documentation and legal precision. I've been in corporate America long enough to know that emotional reactions rarely lead to favorable outcomes. The people who survive and thrive are the ones who think strategically, anticipate problems, and protect themselves with irrefutable evidence. I began by securing every single piece of documentation related to the data flow deal: email threads, meeting notes, presentation drafts, contract revisions, everything. I copied them to an encrypted external drive and stored physical printouts in a safety deposit box at First National Bank. Every document was time-stamped. Every communication was preserved with full metadata intact. But I didn't stop there. I reached out to Robert Martinez at Dataflow and scheduled a post-contract relationship meeting. During our lunch at Morton's Steakhouse on May 22nd, I casually mentioned the recent leadership changes at Technovision. "How do you feel about working with our new commercial director going forward?" I asked. Robert's response was telling. "To be honest, Colin, we've been impressed with your personal attention to this project. You understood our needs from day one. We're hoping to continue working directly with you on implementation and future expansion." "That's exactly what I was hoping to hear," I replied, making a mental note of his words. I documented that conversation immediately after lunch, including the date, time, location, and Robert's exact quotes. I was building a case piece by piece that would be impossible to dispute. Meanwhile, Danielle was making moves of her own. On May 25th, exactly 1 week after her grand announcement, she scheduled a private meeting with me. I walked into her newly renovated office, where she'd already redecorated with expensive furniture and artwork. She got straight to the point. "Colin, I've been reviewing our organizational structure, and I think we have some redundancy in our strategic accounts division," she said, not even offering me a seat. "With the new systems I'm implementing, we can streamline operations and eliminate some overlapping responsibilities." I kept my expression neutral. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "I think it's time for Technovision to move in a new direction. Your position as Senior Strategic Accounts Manager is being restructured. We'll be transitioning to a more centralized approach under my direct oversight." The corporate doublespeak was thick, but the message was crystal clear. She was planning to fire me. "I see," I said calmly. "What's the timeline for these changes?" "We'll be making the transition at the end of this month. HR will handle the details." I nodded and stood up. "I appreciate you giving me advanced notice." As I walked back to my office, I wasn't panicked or devastated. I was actually relieved. Danielle had just confirmed exactly what I suspected she would do, and I was already 10 steps ahead of her. That afternoon, I called my attorney, David Brennan, a labor law specialist I'd worked with years earlier. I scheduled a meeting for the following day and began preparing the most comprehensive documentation package of my career. But the most important call I made was to James Richardson, the CEO of Pinnacle Solutions, a direct competitor to Technovision. James and I had crossed paths at industry conferences, and he had more than once mentioned that he'd be interested in discussing opportunities if I ever considered a change. "James, this is Colin Mercer from Technovision. I think it's time we had that conversation." On May 31st, Danielle Cross called me into HR for what she termed my transition meeting. Present were herself, HR Director Linda Walsh, and, surprisingly, Richard Cross himself. I walked in carrying a simple leather portfolio, looking as composed as if I were attending a routine performance review. "Colin, we've decided to restructure your position effective immediately," Danielle announced with practiced corporate coldness. "Your role as Senior Strategic Accounts Manager is being eliminated as part of our organizational optimization." Linda Walsh slid a termination agreement across the table. The severance package was minimal: 2 weeks of pay and basic COBRA health insurance continuation. No recognition of the $2.4 million deal I'd just closed. No performance bonus. No acknowledgement of 8 years of dedicated service. We'll need you to clean out your office today and return all company property, Danielle continued. Security will escort you out once you've gathered your personal items. I reviewed the termination agreement carefully, making notes in the margins. Richard Cross looked uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact throughout the entire meeting. After several minutes of silence, I looked up. "This seems premature," I said quietly, especially considering the Dataflow contract was just finalized 2 weeks ago. Danielle's jaw tightened. That contract was the result of team effort and new strategic leadership. Individual contributions are less relevant in our current organizational model. I nodded slowly and signed the agreement, but I had no intention of accepting their terms. Within hours of leaving Technovision, I was sitting in David Brennan's law office with a banker's box full of evidence. David reviewed my documentation for 3 hours straight, every email, every contract draft, every meeting note, every timestamp. "Colin, this is the most comprehensive wrongful termination case I've seen in 15 years, he said, adjusting his glasses. "You've documented everything. The timeline alone proves bad faith termination, firing you immediately after you generated their biggest revenue event of the year." "What are our options?" I asked. "Multiple angles: wrongful termination, commission theft, potentially even fraud, considering they're denying your role in generating that revenue. Texas employment law is favorable to at-will termination, but when there's clear evidence of retaliatory firing and credit theft, we have solid ground." "File everything," I told him, "but don't serve papers yet. I want to see how this plays out first." Meanwhile, I had coffee with James Richardson at Pinnacle Solutions on June 3rd. James offered me a partnership position on the spot, a 15% equity stake, a $180,000 base salary, and a full commission on any business I brought over. The offer was more than generous. It was transformative. "There's one condition," I told James. "I have a client relationship that might follow me, but I need to handle the transition ethically and professionally." "Absolutely. We do business the right way here." I accepted his offer and started at Pinnacle on June 9th. The equity stake represented significant potential value. If we could grow the company as projected, my 15% could be worth millions within a few years. But I didn't immediately contact Robert Martinez at Dataflow. I wanted to see how Technovision would handle the implementation of the contract I'd negotiated. The answer came sooner than expected. On June 16th, Robert Martinez called me directly on my personal cell phone. His voice was frustrated and confused. "Colin, what the hell is happening over at Technovision? We've been trying to schedule our implementation kickoff meeting for 2 weeks, and nobody seems to know the details of our contract. This Danielle woman keeps rescheduling, and when we do connect, she doesn't understand the customizations we agreed on." I chose my words carefully. "Robert, I'm no longer with Technovision as of early June. They restructured my position." There was a long pause. "They got rid of you right after we signed our biggest contract with them? Colin, you were the only reason we chose Technovision over the competition. You understood our business." "I appreciate that, Robert. Unfortunately, these things happen in corporate restructuring." "This is unacceptable. We signed that contract based on your representations and your understanding of our needs. If you're not there to oversee implementation, we have serious concerns about Technovision's ability to deliver." Another pause. Then Robert asked the question I'd been hoping he would ask. "Where are you working now?" "I've joined Pinnacle Solutions as a partner. We specialize in the same type of enterprise software solutions." "Can Pinnacle handle a project like ours?" "Robert, we can handle it better than anyone else in the market. And you'd be working directly with me throughout the entire process. Send me a proposal. If it's competitive, we're pulling out of the Technovision contract." Within 48 hours, Pinnacle Solutions had submitted a comprehensive proposal to Dataflow Industries. Our pricing was 12% lower than Technovision's, and our timeline was faster. Most importantly, Robert Martinez trusted me to deliver results. On June 24th, Dataflow Industries formally terminated their contract with Technovision, citing failure to provide adequate project management and implementation support. They signed with Pinnacle Solutions the same day. The $2.4 million deal that Danielle Cross had claimed credit for was gone. Not only that, but Dataflow was now telling other companies in their industry about Technovision's inability to properly manage major implementations. But the real chaos was just beginning. News of Dataflow's contract termination hit Technovision like a Category 5 hurricane. Within 24 hours, the entire company knew their biggest deal in history had evaporated. What they didn't immediately understand was why. Richard Cross called an emergency board meeting. The company's quarterly projections, which had been built around the Dataflow revenue, suddenly showed a massive shortfall. Investors who had been promised significant returns were asking hard questions about Technovision's ability to retain major clients. On June 26, I received a frantic call from Sarah in accounting. She was whispering, clearly calling from somewhere private. "Colin, this place is in complete meltdown. Richard Cross is furious about the Dataflow situation. He's demanding answers from Danielle, and she's basically throwing everyone under the bus except herself." "What's she saying?" I asked. "She's claiming that Dataflow was always an unstable client, that their demands were unrealistic, and that losing them was actually beneficial for the company's long-term strategy. Nobody's buying it." 3 days later, David Brennan served Technovision with a comprehensive wrongful termination lawsuit. The filing included every piece of documentation I'd collected, establishing a clear timeline that showed my exclusive role in developing the Dataflow relationship and the retaliatory nature of my termination. But here's what made the lawsuit particularly devastating. It included Robert Martinez's sworn affidavit stating that Dataflow had chosen Technovision specifically because of their confidence in my expertise and that they terminated the contract solely due to my absence from the implementation team. The legal filing became public record. Within days, industry publications were reporting on the lawsuit, and Technovision's reputation began crumbling. Potential clients started questioning whether the company could deliver on major projects without the expertise that had generated their most significant recent success. On July 8, Technovision's board of directors launched an internal investigation into the circumstances surrounding my termination and the subsequent loss of the Dataflow contract. They hired an external consulting firm to review company communications, management decisions, and client relationship protocols. The investigation lasted 2 weeks. When the results were presented to the board on July 22, the findings were damning for Danielle Cross. The consultants discovered that Danielle had systematically taken credit for work performed by other team members, not just me. They found evidence of her making strategic decisions without proper consultation, alienating key clients through her inexperience, and creating a toxic work environment that had led to the departure of 3 other senior staff members in addition to myself. Most critically, they determined that my termination had been retaliatory and had directly caused the loss of the Dataflow contract, resulting in a $2.4 million revenue loss plus an estimated $3.7 million in projected future business from Dataflow's referrals. On July 25, Richard Cross called another company meeting. This time, Danielle wasn't present. Effective immediately, Danielle Cross is no longer serving as commercial director, he announced to a room full of employees who were trying not to smile. The board has determined that recent management decisions have not been in the company's best interests. Danielle was quietly terminated with a basic severance package. No fanfare, no press release, no graceful transition period. Her brief reign as commercial director had lasted exactly 7 months and had nearly bankrupted the company. But my story doesn't end with Danielle's downfall. It ends with something much more satisfying: my own success. By early August 2023, Pinnacle Solutions had successfully implemented the Dataflow project, coming in ahead of schedule and under budget. Robert Martinez was so impressed that he recommended us to 4 other companies in his network. Our partnership had already secured $4.2 million in new contracts, and my 15% equity stake in Pinnacle was growing in value rapidly. More importantly, I had built something meaningful, a company culture based on merit, integrity, and genuine client relationships. Technovision eventually settled my wrongful termination lawsuit in late July 2023 for $475,000, plus a public acknowledgement of my role in developing their client relationships. They also agreed to provide positive references for any future opportunities. Richard Cross personally called me to apologize for his daughter's actions and to ask if I would consider returning to Technovision in a senior leadership role. I politely declined. The most satisfying moment came in late 2023 when Pinnacle Solutions was recognized as a Rising Star software partner by the Texas Technology Association. During my acceptance speech, I talked about the importance of recognizing individual contributions and building teams based on competence rather than connections. I never mentioned Danielle Cross by name. I didn't need to. Looking back now, exactly 2 years later, I realized that Danielle's betrayal was actually the best thing that ever happened to my career. Her attempt to steal my success forced me to document my value, protect my relationships, and ultimately build something bigger than I could have ever achieved at Technovision. The lesson here isn't about revenge. It's about preparation. When someone tries to take credit for your work or attempts to eliminate you to cover their own inadequacy, the best response isn't anger, it's evidence. Document everything. Protect your relationships. Build your reputation on substance, not politics. And when someone tries to destroy you, make sure you're already 10 steps ahead with everything you need to prove your worth. Because in the end, competence always wins over connections, integrity always triumphs over manipulation, and the truth has a way of revealing itself when you've been smart enough to preserve it. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.